the name that defined absolute power. His life was a series of impossible risks, from his conquest of Gaul to his affair with Cleopatra. He crossed the Rubicon, saved his career, and destroyed a 500-year republic. This is the complete history of Julius Caesar. Gaius Julius Caesar was born into the venerable yet financially strained Julian gens in 100 BC. From the start, his life was not a steady ascent but a desperate scramble for survival. His teenage years coincided with the brutal civil wars between the conservative Optimates and the popular Populares. Caesar's early political allegiance was to the Populares, cemented by his marriage to Cornelia, the daughter of a powerful faction leader. This choice immediately put him in the crosshairs of the ultimate conservative dictator, Sulla. When Sulla seized absolute power, he ordered Caesar to divorce Cornelia. Caesar refused. He was forced to flee Rome, becoming a fugitive in his own homeland. Only immense pressure from family and influential friends convinced Sulla to grant Caesar a reluctant pardon. As Caesar walked away, Sulla famously prophesied, "In that young Caesar there is many a Marius," recognizing the potential for revolutionary danger in the ambitious young man. This near-death experience taught Caesar the critical lesson of Roman politics. Mercy is a weakness, and absolute power is the only true defense. Caesar then served his time in the military in the East, where his valor earned him a civic crown for saving a comrade's life. But his true talents lay in communication. After Sulla's death, Caesar returned to Rome and made a name for himself as an aggressive, brilliant orator and defense attorney, often prosecuting corrupt former governors. He was theatrical, charismatic, and used his oratory not just to win cases but to win the adulation of the common Roman people, the plebeians. This populist support was his first great political weapon. He consciously cultivated an image of boundless ambition. At 33, upon seeing a statue of Alexander the Great in Spain, Caesar reportedly wept, lamenting that Alexander had conquered the world by the time he was Caesar's age. This anecdote, whether true or fabricated, perfectly captured the restless ambition that drove him. He knew that to compete with the giants of Rome, Pompey and Crassus, he needed two things: massive financial backing and an unprecedented military command. By the 60s BC, Caesar's political star was rising, but his debts were crippling, reaching astronomical figures to finance his political campaigns. Recognizing he couldn't overpower the entrenched Senate alone, he engineered the secret, illegal political alliance in 60 BC, known as the First Triumvirate. This was a brutal but brilliant pragmatic partnership. Pompey the Great, the military hero, offered him legions and influence. Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome, provided the enormous funds needed to buy his political way forward. Caesar provided the populist charm and the political ruthlessness to enforce their agenda. The triumvirate successfully bulldozed the Senate, securing Caesar his first consulship. During his term, he bypassed legal procedures, used intimidation, and even summoned armed thugs to ensure the passage of his radical land reform laws, all actions that cemented the Senate's fear and hatred for him. Most importantly, the triumvirate guaranteed him the power base he demanded: the proconsulship of Cisalpine Gaul and Illyricum for an unprecedented 5 years, later extended to 10. Caesar understood that political power was fleeting, but military glory was eternal. He spent the next 8 years from 58 to 50 BC, undertaking one of history's most savage and successful military campaigns, the conquest of Gaul, modern France, Belgium, and Switzerland. This war was not just about territory. It was about transforming Caesar from a debt-ridden politician into an independent superpower. His war was financed entirely by the plunder, slaves, and taxation of the conquered Gauls. His generalship was marked by an almost impossible pace. His legions moved with unparalleled speed, often surprising his enemies. His military brilliance was demonstrated time and again, from the rapid subjugation of the Helvetii to his symbolic feat of engineering, bridging the Rhine River in just 10 days, purely to instill terror in the Germanic tribes. He even launched 2 bold, though ultimately inconclusive, invasions of Britain, feats that captured the Roman imagination. The campaigns culminated in the massive uprising led by the Gallic chieftain Vercingetorix. The final confrontation at the Battle of Alesia, 52 BC, remains Caesar's greatest tactical masterstroke. He besieged Vercingetorix's massive army inside the fortified city, while simultaneously building a second outer wall to defend against a massive Gallic relief army that had come to break the siege. He defeated two enormous armies simultaneously, forcing Vercingetorix's surrender. By 50 BC, Caesar had not only conquered Gaul, but had personally supervised the enslavement or killing of over 1 million people, ensuring his immense personal wealth, and, most critically, creating an army of fiercely loyal veterans who were devoted to him and him alone. While Caesar was absent, the political landscape in Rome disintegrated. The alliance of the triumvirate shattered when Crassus was killed fighting the Parthians. The Senate, now fully aware of the existential threat posed by Caesar's immense power and loyal army, turned Pompey, who had grown jealous of Caesar's military success, into their champion. The Senate, led by Caesar's ideological enemy, Cato the Younger, demanded that Caesar relinquish his command and return to Rome as a private citizen to face certain prosecution for illegal acts committed years earlier. Caesar knew that obeying the Senate meant political ruin and likely exile. Defying them meant civil war. On January 10, 49 BC, Caesar marched south and paused at the bank of the Rubicon River, the small stream that legally separated his province from Roman Italy. Roman law strictly forbade any general from leading an army across the Rubicon into Italy, on pain of being declared an enemy of the state. In one of history's most famous moments, Caesar pondered the fate of the Republic. The moment of decision passed, and he uttered the famous definitive phrase, "Alea iacta est," the die is cast, and led his single legion, the 13th, across the river. The act was a declaration that the laws of the Republic were over. The civil war was swift. Pompey and the majority of the Senate fled Rome for Greece, planning to overwhelm Caesar with the legions stationed in the east. Caesar, relying on the speed and loyalty of his veterans, pursued them relentlessly. The decisive conflict came at the Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BC. Despite being significantly outnumbered, Caesar's tactical genius crushed Pompey's forces. Pompey fled to Egypt, where he was immediately assassinated by agents of King Ptolemy III, who hoped to curry favor with the victorious Caesar. Caesar, furious at the murder of a fellow Roman, involved himself immediately in the Egyptian civil war. He famously deposed Ptolemy and installed the highly ambitious and intelligent Cleopatra VII on the throne, beginning the most politically charged love affair of the ancient world. Their relationship was not just personal, it was a military and political alliance that secured Egypt's grain supply and treasury for Caesar's cause. He then spent the next 3 years methodically eliminating the remaining pockets of Pompey's allies across North Africa and Spain. Caesar returned to Rome in triumph in 45 BC, the undisputed master of the Roman world. He now governed not through republican consensus but through sheer personal authority. His rule was marked by a breathtaking pace of essential, yet fundamentally anti-republican reform. He established the Julian calendar, which remains the basis of our modern timekeeping. He initiated massive public works to alleviate unemployment and gave land grants to the urban poor and his loyal veterans. He was effective but utterly autocratic. His greatest transgression was his handling of the Senate. He packed the institution with his loyal supporters, destroying its historic independence. His arrogance grew with his power. He adopted kingly regalia, appeared on coins, an honor reserved for gods, and refused to rise when senators addressed him. The final fatal blow to the Republic came in 44 BC, when he was granted the title Dictator Perpetuo, dictator in perpetuity. This move was a brazen declaration that his rule was permanent and hereditary, a king in all but name. The growing conspiracy was led by senators who were ideologically driven to restore the Republic. The key conspirators were Marcus Junius Brutus and Gaius Cassius Longinus. Brutus, a close friend and a man who believed in the principles of the Republic above all else, was convinced that the assassination was a sacred act of tyrannicide. On March 15, 44 BC, the Ides of March, Caesar ignored all omens and warnings, proceeding to the Senate meeting held at the theater of Pompey. The conspirators, approximately 60 senators, were waiting. As they surrounded him, daggers drawn, Caesar initially fought back with desperation. However, upon seeing the face of Brutus among the attackers, his will reportedly broke. He received 23 stab wounds and collapsed at the base of the statue of his former ally, Pompey. The conspirators had planned the murder, but not the political aftermath. They had foolishly believed the people would welcome them as saviors. Instead, the public was enraged by the murder of their champion. The assassination did not restore the Republic. It simply cleared the path for a new wave of civil wars, which were ultimately won by Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian Augustus, who used the popular outrage to justify seizing absolute power. Caesar's life is defined by this ultimate paradox. He was a populist revolutionary, a military genius, and a reformist who ultimately destroyed the very political system he was born into. Yet his political genius and military command established the unbreakable foundation for the Roman Empire, and his name, Caesar, became the eternal title of the emperor. What would history look like if Caesar had not crossed the Rubicon? Was he ultimately a reformer or a tyrant? Was his death a heroic rescue of the Republic, or merely the inevitable start of the empire? We await your analysis in the comments below on Bamboo Story.